Good morning. So today is Psalm 18, and it's a long one, so it's a good one to end our week with. I'll go ahead and we'll get to it, and we'll do it in the same manner that we did Psalm 17 yesterday. Psalm 18, to the choir master, a psalm of David, the servant of the Lord, who addressed the words of this song to the Lord on the day when the Lord delivered him from the hand of all his enemies and from the hand of Saul. Now, we don't know exactly when this was written, though there is a very similar psalm in 2 Samuel chapter 22. So if you go to 2 Samuel chapter 22, read the Song of David there. It's incredibly similar to this psalm. Verses 1 through 3, David talks about how Yahweh is his protection. He starts with, he said, I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer. My God, my rock in whom I take refuge. My shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I call upon the Lord who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies. Verses 4 through 5, David puts before his situation, before the one whom is his protection. He says, the cords of death encompassed me. The torrents of destruction assailed me. The cords of Sheol entangled me. The snares of death confronted me. So a lot of parallelism going on there. And David's just talking about how he's been close to death multiple times. Yeah, in verse 6, he cries out in my distress in these near-death experiences. David, in his distress, calls upon the Lord. To my God, I cried for help. From his temple, he heard my voice, and my cry to him reached his ear. And then verse 7 through 8 talks about the anger of God in response to David's situation, and it describes it in this way. Then the earth reeled and rocked. The foundations also of the mountains trembled and quaked, because he, that's Yahweh, was angry. Smoke went up from his nostrils, and in the Hebrew, nostrils and nose, the flaring of it, is symbolic of anger. And devouring fire from his mouth, glowing coals flamed forth from him. And then verses 9 through 11, Yahweh came down. It talks about how Yahweh bowed the heavens and came down. Thick darkness was under his feet. He rode on a cherub and flew. He came swiftly on the wings of the wind. He made darkness his covering, his canopy around him, thick clouds dark with water. Now, of course, this is all poetic language from David. Verses 12 to 13 talk about the awesome presence of God. Out of the brightness before him, hailstones and coals of fire broke through his clouds. The Lord, Yahweh, also thundered in the heavens, and the Most High uttered his voice, hailstones and coals of fire. And in doing so, the enemy of Yahweh is laid bare in verses 14 to 15. And he, that's Yahweh, sent out his arrows and scattered them. He flashed forth lightnings and routed them. That's the enemy. Then the channels of the sea were seen, and the foundations of the world were laid bare. At your rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of the breath of your nostrils. Then 16:17 talks about David's rescue from Yahweh. He sent from on high, he took me, he drew me out of many waters. He rescued me from my strong enemy and from those who hated me, for they were too mighty for me. So David's victory here is being ascribed completely and utterly to Yahweh. It is not done by his hand, it's done by God's hand. Verse 18-19 talks about the protection that Yahweh is. They confronted me, that's his enemy, in the day of my calamity. But the Lord, Yahweh, was my support. He brought me out into a broad place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. That's, again, a common theme that we're seeing in all of these Psalms from David is that God does the things that he's doing for him because he delights in David. He delights in the man and the person who is righteous and upright. In verses 20 through 24, it talks about how Yahweh rewards David for his righteousness. It talks more about this delight. The Lord dealt with me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands. He rewarded me. For I have kept the ways of the Lord and have not wickedly depart from my God. For all his rules were before me, and his statutes I did not put away from me. I was blameless before him, and I kept myself from my guilt. So the Lord has rewarded me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands in his sight. Now consider these words. This is coming from a man who has slaughtered women and children and men. And yet he's saying his hands are clean. that he has kept himself from guilt. So just ponder those things. Read 1 Samuel again and think of how some of the things that David has done. And also when it says I kept myself from guilt, ponder the situation of Abigail and Nabal, how David credits Abigail for delivering him from incurring blood guilt on him. If he had gone through with that, would he have been able to pen these words? Just some things to ponder. When you read these Psalms of David, remember he is not a man free from sin. He is not a man who has not suffered and done horrible things in the world. But yet he is able to say these things. Verses 25 to 31 talks about how God is merciful and he is ferocious. With the merciful, you show yourself merciful. With the blameless man, you show yourself blameless. With the purified, you show yourself pure. And with the crooked, you make yourself seem torturous. For you save a humble people, but the haughty eyes you bring down. For it is you who light my lamp. The Lord my God lightens my darkness. For by you I can run against a troop, and by my God I can leap over a wall. This God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord proves true. He is a shield for all those who take refuge in him. For who is God but the Lord? And who is a rock except our God? So that's just some praise that David is giving to God, and some credit to him as well. Verses 32 to 36 talks about how God invigorates him. The God who equipped me with strength and made my way blameless. He made my feet like the feet of a deer and set me secure on the heights. He trains my hands for war so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. You have given me the shield of your salvation, and your right hand supported me, and your gentleness made me great. You gave me a wide place for my steps under me, and my feet did not slip. Again, the success, the security, the energy, the vitality that David has been granted through his life in his military campaigns, it's all because of Yahweh. David is not taking credit for it. Verse 37 through 42 talks about how David's enemies are exterminated. I pursued my enemies and overtook them, and did not turn back till they were consumed. I thrust them through so that they were not able to rise. They fell under my feet. For you, that's Yahweh, equipped me with strength for the battle. You made those who rise against me sink under me. You made my enemies turn their backs to me, and those who hated me I destroyed. They cried for help, but there was none to save. They cried to the Lord, but he did not answer them. I beat them fine as dust before the wind. I cast them out like the mire of the streets. You know, in verse 41, I can't help but to think of Saul when he talks about how they cried for help. They cried to Yahweh, but he did not answer them. And think of how Saul was scared before the Philistines, and he desperately sought the Lord's advice, but God did not answer him. And as we've gone through 1 Samuel, for very good reasons, Yahweh did not answer him. And David is describing that of the enemies that he has crushed before him. Verses 43 through 48 talks about David exalting, talking about how Yahweh has exalted him, and thus, because of that, David exalts Yahweh. He talks about how you delivered me from strife with the people. You made me the head of the nations. People whom I had not known served me. As soon as they heard of me, they obeyed me. Foreigners came cringing to me. Foreigners lost heart and came trembling out of their fortresses. The Lord lives, and blessed be my rock, and exalted be the God of my salvation, the God who gave me vengeance and subdued peoples under me, who rescued me from my enemies. Yes, you exalted me above those who rose against me. You delivered me from the man of violence. So again, David's crediting his rise to the king, to the throne, and the glory that Israel has experienced under his reign to God, recognizing that his own personal exaltation is a result of Yahweh doing so. And as a result, Yahweh, God himself, is glorified in that. And then the final two verses, David blesses Yahweh. For this I will praise you, O Lord, among the nations, and sing to your name. Great salvation he brings to his king, and shows steadfast love to his anointed, to David and his offspring forever. So again, we see this steadfast love, this chesed love, and that's ultimately what allows David to make the claims before God that he's blameless, that he's upright. Though he has committed sin, he seeks forgiveness when he commits those sins. For example, Bathsheba, though it did take a prophet to confront him. And in that, his delay in seeking forgiveness and so forth, he sought forgiveness of. And we also got to consider not not everything that like we might think that because David slaughtered men and women, that in itself is a sin. Um, it's not. He incurred no blood guilt in that regard. Remember talking about the Amalekites and some of the other nations that he slaughtered on those raids when he was with the Philistines. All those nations were part of the nations that Joshua and Moses were given orders by Yahweh to wipe out and to remove from the land. And that should cause us to ponder exactly, I guess, a doctrine of suffering, especially in the Old Testament. What does that look like? Not all sufferings, just because suffering happens, doesn't mean that suffering in itself is sinful. We live in a fallen world, and some of the suffering is part of God's righteous judgment against sin. So that's Psalm 18. That's a long one. So again, if you go to 2 Samuel 22, you'll read a similar song by David in that one. And then next week we will, starting on Monday, we'll have Psalm 19 for you. Have a blessed weekend and a good day.